Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to talk about something that's a little on the gate-kept side of filmmaking. We're going to be talking about how to make that money, how to stack that cheddar, how to get that bread, or more realistically in our industry, how to pay your phone bill. Let's talk about it. All right, so in the world of filmmaking, there are actually a lot of ways to make money, but it is not the easiest industry, and we're gonna kind of get into all of this. Now, when I said it's gate-kept, I think it's more so people just don't talk about it as openly, because a lot of the ways that we pay our rent and pay our bills is not that glamorous. There's a lot of corporate work, a lot of branded content, a lot of social media content, things that we don't necessarily promote as filmmakers. And because people don't talk about it as openly, I thought this would be a cool video to just be completely transparent and tell you guys my entire trajectory of my filmmaking career. We're gonna go from the beginning to the ups and the downs, all the way to what my career looks like right now, and how I make a living in Los Angeles, California. Before we get into it, I'm using my windows and my shears as a key light, and the weather's kind of wonky today. So the lighting might change a little bit, but just try not to let it distract you. So in this video, we're gonna talk about the path that I took to become a successful filmmaker in Los Angeles. And when I use the word success, I'm talking about comfortability. I'm not talking about Oscar-winning mansion in Beverly Hills. I'm talking about doing what I love and being able to provide a comfortable living for myself. Now, the goal ultimately is making feature films for a living as either a cinematographer, a director, or maybe both. And there has been a decent amount of that in my career, but that's definitely not what my whole career looks like. So first, we're gonna talk about a couple paths that I did not take that you might have interest in, and then we're gonna talk about the path that I did take, and each step I took along the way to get to where I am today. I'm also gonna share with you guys some work that I've done throughout that entire process. So along with the growth of my career, you can also see how horrible I was at the beginning of my career. So this is a fully honest, transparent look at the ways I make money as a filmmaker in LA, and some tips and tricks that might help you as well. So first, let's talk about the paths that I did not take, and there's basically two. The first one is film school. Now, if you have the money and the time, the reason I might recommend film school is not exactly what you think. Now, in a way, this was part of my path. I went to the University of California, Irvine, so it wasn't an actual film school, but they did offer a film studies major. But film studies is not really hands-on production. It's a lot more theory, screenwriting, and how to tell a story. Although I'm grateful I got that education, outside of screenwriting, I did not really get anything out of it on a technical, hands-on learning level. For things like that, you might want to look at schools more like AFI. The reason I might recommend film school is purely for the networking. These days, you can learn so much online. As a matter of fact, my YouTube channel alone, if you dig through all of the videos, can give you a really good head start on basic cinematography skills and even some advanced cinematography skills. If you are brand new, I highly recommend checking out the short section of my channel. That has a lot of information that's gonna get you started on making pretty good images very quickly. So between my channel and hundreds of other ones, there is no shortage of online content for you to learn cinematography. But what film school does offer is networking. The networking at film school can be absolutely invaluable. I've heard time and time again stories of people going into film school and kind of coming up through the ranks with people that they met there. That brings us to our second path, which I also did not take, not exactly at least, and that's coming up through the ranks. Some might call this a more traditional path. Now, for the sake of this video, when I talk about these career paths, I'm mostly going to be speaking on cinematography. But the ideas behind all these can be applicable to pretty much any department: editing, directing, art department, production design, sound, you name it. So the traditional path for a cinematographer might look something like this. You're starting as a PA, then maybe a camera assistant, a second AC, a first AC, a camera operator, and then eventually a DP. And really, this path is just about being on set, taking any position you can that you know you're capable of, and getting on set as much as possible. This is a really beneficial way to meet a ton of people. Once you kind of find your tribe in this community, you're constantly bringing each other on different jobs. And then each new job you take, you're meeting even more people. So as you're expanding your network, you're also expanding your scope of actual work. The downside of coming up through the ranks is it doesn't pay that well at first. So like pretty much any industry, you're gonna have to kind of be in the trenches for a bit before you start making some consistent, decent money. But you will gain amazing networking, and you will learn a ton by working with different crews. Every DP and director is gonna have their own way of doing things, and you get to just soak up all of that knowledge every time you're on set. The plus side of coming up through the ranks is you might become a DP's favorite first AC or camera operator that they use consistently. Then if they have too much work or if they need to hand something off, generally they think of you, and that's sort of your way into being a DP. If you do take this route, I also highly recommend buying a camera and shooting stuff on the weekends with your friends. That way you can actually practice the things that you learn on set and build your reel. I generally recommend these paths if you're a bit younger, because usually if you are a bit younger, you might have a roommate or even a couple roommates, and financial responsibilities aren't quite as heavy. But neither one of those is really the path that I took. So let's get into how I started. I'm gonna date myself a lot in this video, so just so you guys know up front, I currently am 39 years old. So my journey into cinematography kind of starts around 2011. I graduated college in 2008, moved to Los Angeles in 2009, and found myself in a comfortable marketing position for branded video content at complex.com. That was around 2011 or 2012. I was doing things on the back end. So I was actually developing treatments for branded video marketing campaigns. This was back when branded video content was just really starting to blossom. It wasn't nearly as big as it is now. So I was in charge of developing the campaigns to pitch to huge companies like Sony, Levi's, Oakley, Adidas, Universal, you name it. We worked with a ton of different brands. Usually what those videos looked like is using our own network within Complex to partner with brands and make organic content for the website. So let's say Lenovo laptops wanted to partner with us. We might do something like find a hip hop artist in our network, ask them to use a Lenovo laptop in their workflow, and create a video showing how the laptop benefits their production workflow. That would be a video that lives on complex.com and is sponsored by Lenovo. So I was developing campaigns like that. Through developing these campaigns, I got to attend some of the shoots. Now, when I was making short films growing up in high school and in college, I was used to like HD camcorders. After school, I kind of fell out of the filmmaking scene for a bit and focused on this marketing career, and I had no idea how far digital cameras had come. At that time, I think some of our shooters were using the Sony FS700s and maybe a Red 1 every now and then. So I was seeing some of this content being created and I was thinking, wow, like this is pretty cinematic, good quality in these tiny little digital cameras. And then the wormhole opened. I started doing research and digging into all things cinematography. I was doing this on the side in my own time, either after work or on the weekends. And I eventually landed on buying a camera of my own, which at the time I think was the Panasonic GH4. So after buying that camera, I just started shooting things on my own. I would take it with me everywhere. Let's take a look at some of the first footage that I ever shot. Pretty terrible, but I was learning. Once I had that camera, I started digging into YouTube videos and podcasts, basically anything I could sink my teeth into to learn more about cinematography. At the time, there was not nearly as much information as there is right now. So a lot of my learning was just trial and error. As I learned more, I ended up selling my GH4 and worked my way up to a cinema camera. That camera at the time was the Sony FS100. It had no log profile and it only shot 1080p, but it actually had a pretty good image for the time. Eventually, I sold that camera and I got a Blackmagic pocket camera, the original one that was like this big. I also picked up some lights and a pistol grip gimbal, which back then was pretty rare. There was only a couple companies that made them and they were at least $1,000. I started shooting a lot more content on my own and even tried a couple short films and branded content. Let's take a look at some of the early on footage I captured with all those cameras. So still pretty bad, but I was learning and I was at least getting somewhere. Then I left Complex and I went to a company called The Chive. At The Chive, I did the same thing, branded video content, but I tried to be a little more hands-on and attend more of the shoots. The more I did this, the more I realized marketing is not for me. I was quickly falling in love with cinematography and realized that that is what I want to do for a living. I was just not built for an office job. During my time at The Chive, I actually was making pretty good money. And although I didn't connect with the content that much, I did like the people I worked with and I definitely liked the paycheck. So during that time, I bought my first true cinema camera, which was the Panasonic VariCam LT. I'm actually repping their hoodie right now. At the time, my friend who I worked with at Complex also started his own company marketing for Kickstarter campaigns. He tapped me to do the videos for the clients he was working with. There was no money up front, but I did get a percentage of the overall Kickstarter sales. Because my friend was tapping me to make full videos, I ended up buying a custom-built PC. First thing I did was buy Adobe Premiere, and I dove into learning editing. Now, I actually used Premiere even in high school, 2002 or 2003. I was editing little short films with me and my friend. But I knew the technology had grown a lot, so I took to learning more of it, so I could make entire videos just by myself. Now, some of the Kickstarters I made videos for actually did pretty well, so I was getting part of that percentage back. So I was actually getting paid for the first time as a filmmaker, which felt pretty cool. Then fast forward a little bit, and my entire department at my full-time job got laid off, myself included. And I believe that brings us to the end of 2016. I actually took the layoff as a sign to do filmmaking full-time as a freelance cinematographer. I did some research and I ended up setting up an LLC called Ben Meredith Films, which today I still have, and it's called Antigua Way Films. I thought it would be a good idea to diversify myself as both a cinematographer and a production company. That way I could promote myself in two different ways. In one way, I could promote myself as just Ben Meredith, the cinematographer. That was for my more artistic and creative projects, like short films, music videos, and some commercials. But depending on the client's needs, I could also promote myself as Antigua Way Films, the production company. That would be more if they needed everything in-house, from developing treatments, scripts, casting, locations, all the way to production and post-production. And in the end, getting a full final video, which I still do today. I leveraged the experience I had at Complex and The Chive into my production company. Because I created a ton of pitch decks at both of those companies, I was really good at PowerPoint and creating nice presentations for my clients. And I think often that would win me a lot of work. So my first year or two as a freelance cinematographer, I decided to just promote myself as a cinematographer immediately. At the time, I was about 30 years old, so I thought I was a little too old to do things the traditional way like we talked about before. I just started promoting myself as a DP right away who had his own camera and his own lighting package. And I got to shooting. I just took every and any job imaginable. I also positioned my company at the time as more Kickstarter focused because I actually had the work to back that up. I could promote on my website that my videos helped Kickstarters get to a certain goal. I also use Google Ads, so if people use certain keywords, it would direct them to my website, mostly for Kickstarter and crowdfunding videos. During the next 2 years, that was pretty much my bread and butter. Crowdfunding videos and getting on set in any way I could in a bunch of different areas. I DP'd as many jobs as I could, but I also took jobs as a camera operator, a grip, a gaffer, a swing, basically anything that would pay and get me on set. I also did a lot of things for free just so I could network and build my reel out. I was on sites like Craigslist, Mandy.com, Staff Me Up, and Upwork every day, just applying to everything that I possibly could. And I got a lot of kind of weird, odd jobs, but they paid pretty well. And back to my initial point, this is the type of stuff we might not always promote as filmmakers. For example, through Upwork, I got a client from India who needed a series of videos about food safety in restaurants. So I hired a friend and we co-produced an entire 14 video series on restaurant food safety for restaurants most likely in India. Very random gig, but it paid pretty well. So although the work was not consistent, I did have some good months here and there. At the time, I also lived with somebody else, so splitting bills and splitting rent made things a little bit easier financially. Over that couple years, my network was also growing a lot. I was attending things like Cinegear, NAB, and just trying to meet as many people as I could. I ended up developing some pretty cool relationships. For example, when the first series of the Atlas Orion anamorphics came out, it was very close to when the first Sony Venice came out. And I actually got both companies to loan me the Sony Venice and the Atlas Orions to create a series of short films kind of showcasing both products. Also, through my work with the VariCam LT, I developed a relationship with Panasonic, which I still have today. So I spoke for panels with them at NAB and Cinegear, which gave me a little more exposure. I should also mention, over this time period, I also kept learning more about editing, color grading, sound mixing, so I could create better videos by myself, and therefore better videos for my clients. And that leads me to 2019, where things really started to pick up. I shot my first feature film as a DP at the top of 2019. Panasonic actually loaned me the Ava 1, so it would be one of the first features ever shot fully on the Ava 1 camera. The movie was called Bone Cold, and years later when it was finished, it actually ended up doing pretty well. We sold it to Wellgo USA, and at one point it was top 10 on Amazon Prime. I learned so much on that shoot. Shooting a feature was a way different beast than a short film or any commercial or music video. I really learned how to develop a language for the film, and to shoot scenes out of order and keep track on how everything goes together. I met a ton of amazing people on that set that I still work with today. Later in 2019, I also DP'd a short film that ended up winning a few awards and got a feature in the magazine Fangoria. I also DP'd a music video for the hip-hop artist Designer in 2019, which ended up doing pretty well and increased my exposure as a DP. Also in 2019, I got to work the BTS unit of the show Euphoria. My friend was heading up the BTS unit as a DP and I worked as a cam op. But there was a couple days he couldn't make it and I filled in as DP for the BTS unit. That was just a wonderful learning experience, being on those sets and seeing how they were run. Then at the end of 2019, I booked my second feature film, which shot in New Mexico for the first month of 2020. That film was called 13 Fanboy and actually got a small theatrical release and ended up being sold to Showtime. I got to work with Dee Wallace on that film, which was really cool. She was in films like Cujo and E.T. and is just an absolute OG. That film had a little bit of a bigger budget and bigger crew than my first feature film, so I just learned a lot more, kept soaking in the knowledge. Once that film wrapped, COVID hit. I got home from New Mexico and about a month later, everything shut down. That was a brutal hit, but even in that time period, I still was getting jobs from my production company, clients who were still looking for video work during these rough times. And that brought us to 2021, where I ended up working on my third feature film called The Other Kind. I was still getting some decent client work through my production company, and then a little later in 2022, I got to work as a camera operator for Bradford Young, one of my all-time favorite DPs. So 2019 to 2022, my career was doing pretty well. I'll be honest, I wasn't making a ton of money, but I was finding myself on these amazing sets and had 3 feature films under my belt as a DP. Shortly after working with Brad, all of the strikes hit. Now I wasn't mad because the strikes were very much warranted. The writer's strike happened, the SAG strikes happened, etc., etc. And then because of this post-COVID thing we were all still trying to figure out, the streamers really took over, lots of work moved out of LA, and to be honest, we're still all very much struggling with that right now. So the years of 2023 and 2024 were probably my hardest ever. I was coming off all this amazing momentum and it all just stopped. I also had a lot of personal problems going on that year. So 2023 and 2024 are almost hard to talk about, to be honest. They were definitely the hardest years of my life. And that might happen as a filmmaker. This industry has a lot of ups and downs, and you really have to ask yourself the question, can I get through this? I found out, and still am finding out, the only way to really make it in this industry is to not give up. But towards the end of 2024, I decided to give up. I got my resume together and I started applying for full-time positions again. This time more on the production side of things, but marketing branded video content. Until at the end of 2024, pretty much my dream scenario happened. A really good friend of mine who I used to work with got a position where he needed consistent video content every month, essentially a retainer. So I got put on retainer for a huge food brand. I can't tell you who they are, but they own a ton of different brands, and if you're in America, they are definitely in your grocery store. That job became consistent income for me in 2025 and remains so till this day in 2026. And that's where the transparency comes in. If you go on my Instagram or even watch videos on this channel, you're not gonna see me promote that side of my work. I'm mostly gonna be talking about my experiences on narrative filmmaking. But right now, honestly, most of my jobs are food content and social media related, and that's what's paying the bills. But in a way, this is kind of the filmmaker's dream, having a company that gives you consistent work, but you can still maintain your flexibility and freedom to take other jobs and work on the creative side of your career. So I'm still currently working on feature films and short films when I can, and developing a feature of my own. And that's pretty much where my career stands right now. Through my production company, Antigua Way Films, I'm officially on retainer for a very big American food company. I'm still able to shoot things in my own time and keep a flexible work schedule. And then as Ben Meredith, the DP, I'll be honest, things are pretty slow right now. So I'm very grateful to have a retainer job that allows me to keep doing what I love for a living. Because if you stick with this industry, you do know eventually the next one will come. And I actually have a couple friends that are currently working on their next feature film that they want me to DP. So that's pretty much my story. Thank you for sticking around for it. I know it was a long one, but if there are any pieces of advice that I can offer or any takeaways from this video, I would say it's these main things. 1, stick with it. That is the main takeaway. It's probably going to take you at least 5 to 10 years before you actually build your experience and your network up to get consistent work. The other thing I would say is become a jack of all trades. Now I know the saying goes, jack of all trades, master of none, but take it from someone who knows. Learning other skills in filmmaking will help you tremendously, especially if you're trying to earn a comfortable living. If you're trying to become a DP, it also really helps to know how to edit, color, and do other things in our industry. That way you can make videos completely on your own. But it also will help your career as a DP. When I work on feature films, I'm always thinking about the edit. I'm constantly talking with the director, what's the pacing, how do you edit? That way I can be very intentional about the way I shoot and make sure that it will all edit together. So we have stick with it, don't give up, learn multiple things in the industry, but I would say choose one to try to really master. Third thing I say is use any skills you already have to your advantage. For example, the skills I had was building treatments and having marketing experience. I took those skills into my company, Antigua Way Films, and it really did help me get more clients. And the fourth and final thing I'll say is network, network, network. Networking is the backbone of our industry. You want to meet as many people as you can and work on as many sets as you can. And also be nice, be a good human being, be humble, be open to learning. Those are the types of people that we want to work with. So I know that was a long one, but I hope you guys took something out of it and found it interesting. I know it was a lot, so if you have any specific questions, leave them in the comments below and I'll make sure to try to get back to you. And if you haven't already, hit the sub button. I'm actually collaborating with a few different companies who just recently sent me some really cool stuff to test out. So we're gonna have a lot of really cool videos coming your way. I'll see you on the next one.